Gwendolyn Brooks was born in Topeka, Kansas in 1917. At a young age, she moved to the south side of Chicago with the Great Migration of the early 1900s. In school, she was described as shy and an outcast because she didn't fit in with her African American classmates due to her lack of athletic ability and lack of light skin. Therefore, she used her writing to freely express herself with a song-like and rhythmic style. Her first poem was published at age 13, and by age 16, she had written over 75 poems. Later, she went on to work for the NAACP and taught at Columbia College in Chicago, Chicago State University, Northeastern Illinois University, Columbia University, and the University of Wisconsin, all the while continuing to write. In 1950, she became the first woman of color to win the Pulitzer Prize for her poetry book, Annie Allen, which is about an African American girl growing into womanhood while dealing with racism, sexism, and violence. The poem from which we are going to analyze the literary devices and the please hold, allow me to consult the pronunciation manual.
Lorje Aja. Lorje Aja.
Is her poem Truth, published in 1987. And if sun comes, how shall we greet him? Shall we not dread him? Shall we not fear him after so lengthy a session with shade? Though we have wept for him, though we have prayed all through the night years, what if we wake one shimmering morning to hear the fierce hammering of his firm knuckles hard on the door? Shall we not shudder? Shall we not flee into the shelter, the dear thick shelter of the familiar propitious haze? Sweet is it, to sleep in the coolness of snug unawareness. The dark hangs heavily over the eyes. The speaker of this poem is contemplating whether or not knowing the truth that African Americans are not seen as equals, especially women, or ignoring that this discrimination exists, is a better way to live. Throughout the poem, an extended metaphor is used to compare this truth to the sun. While the sun may be beneficial, it can also harm, like the truth may. In the first stanza, the two questions show the speaker's unsureness of the oncoming truth. The use of the pronoun him suggests a feminist undertone and emphasizes the struggle of being a woman of color at that time. Shall we not dread him? Shall we not fear him? Is the first example of anaphora in the poem. Anaphora is the deliberate repetition of the first part of the sentence in order to achieve an artistic effect. It is also used to lay emphasis on the idea the speaker wants to convey or affirm. So here, each line begins with shall we not, which displays the uncertainty of how the speaker should react to this truth. In the next line, so lengthy a session with shade refers to the hiding from this truth thus far. The speaker is questioning whether it is even worth accepting the truth at this point, after being in the dark about it for so long. The second stanza begins with the next example of anaphora with the phrase, though we have. This further emphasizes the unsureness that the speaker is experiencing of wanting to know the truth. Though they may have wanted the truth to shine light upon them previously, the speaker is now second-guessing themselves. Night years refers to the lengthy session with shade described in the first stanza. In the next lines, morning is described as shimmering to draw contrast from the fierce hammering of his firm knuckles. This reflects how dramatic of a disturbance and hard of a change it could be to live knowing this truth. Brooks creates the image of a hard knocking on your door to show that while the truth sometimes may be beneficial, it can also cause harm. The third stanza starts off with the last example of anaphora in the poem using the phrase, shall we not, once more. Again, this is used to reiterate the uncertainty of how to react if this truth would be accepted. The image of the shelter, dear and familiar, is a metaphor for the comfort of the favorable and recognizable shade the speaker has been living in. Between stanzas 3 and 4, there is a shift in which the speaker is no longer questioning. It begins with the repetition of sweet is it, which displays the confirmed attitude of the speaker content with not being hurt by the truth. To sleep in the coolness of snug unawareness basically says ignorance is bliss. The speaker is happy in the comfort of the shade without the possibility of being harmed by the sun, which is the truth. In the last stanza, the dark hanging heavily over the eyes is the speaker living in denial that the truth of discrimination exists. Not being brought into light by the truth is much more tempting and convincing. The truth is there, but the speaker does not want their eyes open to it. Both knowing the truth and being ignorant of it, whether it be by choice or not, comes with respective consequences.